Welcome back to another episode of Misunderstood. I am Renee V, aka Mrs. Understood, and this is the podcast where being understood makes perfect sense. Today I have a really special guest, Angie Grandt. Angie is a generational healing specialist. She guides you to recognize patterns that are no longer serving you, and using holistic healing modalities helps you break generational cycles that are creating whole body stress, damaged relationships, and sense of frustration that has become your norm. Oh, I can't wait for this. Angie specializes in relationships, parenting challenging behaviors, adoption dynamics, and partner relationships. She brings to her work real life experience as an adoptive and bio mama, as well as professional experience as a human design specialist, EFT practitioner, and 2+ decades supporting families of children with autism and speech differences. Ooh, Angie is perfectly designed to help you create powerful change. It's in her unique energy blueprint. Wow. Welcome, Angie, to Misunderstood. For those of you out there listening, I am a speech therapist, and so is Angie. And we met each other through this, and I'm so excited to dive into all the different aspects of your world right now, Angie. So, can you tell me, just to start off, what's a moment in your journey where you felt really misunderstood?
Oh, that's an easy one. So as you were outlining, I have my past, both professional and personal, has been all about helping, right? I've worked in the special education realm and autism. And so I went into my parenting journey feeling so ridiculously prepared when I adopted my son. And I I feel like I was misunderstood within myself and out in the world, right? So I had this child come to my home who had really significant challenging behaviors. He had a really tricky past. And I I felt like I was doing all the right things. I was doing all the things that I had in my professional tool belt, trying to apply them to my mom life.
Mhm.
And it wasn't working. And, I was seeking so much feedback and advice from therapists, from counselors, psychiatrists, all these people that were wrapped around my son's care. And I just kept saying, like, it shouldn't be this hard. And I would often get the feedback that, sometimes love just isn't enough. Like sometimes some kids can't be helped. Some kids they've just experienced too much or they're resistant to treatment. That was another big one I would hear about my son. And so I had this like internal conflict because like my gut was like, but I'm like missing the mark with him.
Mhm.
And but then my head was like, no, 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 Angie, you know so much. You know all the ways to handle behaviors. I mean, like I ran an ABA clinic for 13 years. I know behavior management like in my sleep. I dream about it. So I felt misunderstood internally and externally. The feedback I was getting was like, oh, guess there's nothing else you can do.
Oh, which is so not true. And
No.
to someone who's not does not have a background in this, in these field, they might just take that and say, you know what, I'm just going to give up on this kid.
Yeah.
But that's not
Yeah.
what you did.
No, no, not at all. And things in my home got really ugly, like police involvement,
Mhm.
psychiatric units, like the CPS, things got really ugly in my home for a while, for a few years. And in that time, I was able to take a step back and take a pause and stop trying to use my head to figure out what I was doing wrong. Because I would look back to moments when he was younger, before things got they were always hard. We adopted him at age 5, and it was hard from the start.
Mhm.
But, when things were just hard and not feeling impossible, there were moments where my gut would say, just give him a hug. He
Mhm.
just needs a hug.
Mhm.
But my mind was like, oh, no, no, no. That's reinforcing this negative behavior you're seeing. Right. My mind was saying that. And so were some of the specialists that we were working with was you can't reinforce those types of behaviors. You'll just make it worse. But my gut was like, God, he just needs a hug, right? He's not acting out because he's trying to ruin my day. He's
Hmm.
acting out because he's hurt and he doesn't know what to do with that. And he's confused and, all these other things that he was probably feeling. So yeah, that's kind of where I was
So
stuck.
did the hug work?
I didn't do it,
You
right?
didn't do it.
No, not at the time because I was so stuck in my head, right? And that's what I was saying, like it created so much disconnect. So I took a step back and I started focusing on me because for the first several years of him in my family, all my focus was on him and the behaviors and how do I fix them, which essentially is me saying, how do I fix him, right?
Hmm.
So I had this chance to take a step back, take a pause, because like I said, they did get really ugly in our home, and he was in a different placement for a while. And I thought, I need to listen to what my gut, what my instincts are telling me, and figure out, without my head so much, figure out what it is that he needs from me because I wasn't ready to give up on that relationship. So I started doing some inner work. I first became a mindset coach, a certified mindset coach, and just taking back that control and understanding that I had personal responsibility for my thoughts and feelings was a game changer.
Hmm.
Understanding that what I thought my misery in my family was because of him, because of his behaviors. But it wasn't. It was because I was choosing to feel frustrated about his behaviors instead of choosing a different way to be. So I first dug into mindset coaching. Well, I first hired a mindset coach and my mind was blown with those concepts. And I
Hmm.
know that that's where you and I really connected too when we first met was you and I have not only are we both speech pathologists, but we both had this kind of awakening of like, wait, what? We have all this control over what we're thinking and feeling. Who knew?
It's common, but not so commonly known.
Mhm. I agree. I mean, I still see it happening in my home every day with the rest of my family.
Yes. Yep.
Um, but I mean, to kind of answer your question, and then we got to carry on. But me working on me and my own mindset, and then understanding, then I kind of jumped into human design, but understanding my energetic needs and his, understanding what my son really needs, that was the game changer in our relationship. And we're incredibly close now, but it took me working on me, not me trying to fix him.
I think that's an important point for the listener to hear because we all, as parents, have challenges with our children, whether they're biological or adopted or foster or step or half, whatever they are. And I think it's really important that we realize that we're doing the best we can with what we have at all times. But there is that piece of it that you introduced the audience to about working on yourself. And that's advice I've given to a lot of people, parents that have, are going through similar struggles, maybe not as extreme, but even just being on like a different wavelength than their teenager, not speaking the same language. And I said, well, you can't impose on your kids things that you're not practicing yourself.
Yeah.
So if you want your kid to be quote unquote fixed, you need to fix yourself. And it's a hard pill to swallow because a lot of people don't even realize that's even like a part of the healing process and a part of connecting truly with people that you love is being the best version of yourself. And
Yeah.
I love that you brought that to light. So you mentioned, Angie, that you and your son have a great relationship. What was your turning point with him?
Um, so all along when things were really strained, like I said, he wasn't living with me anymore. He was primarily with me and then he wasn't.
Okay.
CPS made a decision.
Mhm. Okay.
Um, so throughout that time, I was making sure that I stayed connected with him, but it was, a text every couple of months, just so he knew that I was still thinking about him.
Mhm.
Um, and so all the while that that was happening, I was really working on changing my own frequency, quite frankly, because prior to that change in our home, my body was having a physiological response being around him, having him like come home from school or even getting a call from the school or a call from the police. My body was going into fight or flight mode. And I
Wow.
knew that I had to change that, change my frequency that I was operating from in order to ever like connect with him. And
Mhm.
so I kept it kind of simple and sent text just to let him know I was thinking about him. And occasionally then I would say, whenever you're ready, I'd love to have dinner with you. So I just kind of like put it on a platter,
Mhm.
stuck it out there, and let
Mhm.
him decide what he was going to do with it. And so that carried on for probably a year and a half or even a little bit longer. And then one day he said, I'd love to have dinner. So we did. And I was very conscious about all of these mindset concepts about I wanted to make sure that the thoughts that I were thinking were in alignment with the feelings that I wanted to have and the actions that I wanted to take in that dinner with him.
Mhm.
Because old Angie, who was living in this kind of perpetual chaos and fear state, I was living by default, right? So I had this kind of recurring thought about being afraid when he was around,
Mhm.
being worried about, what bad thing he might do. And I know that those thoughts created this fear feeling that I was feeling
Yep.
all the time. And then my actions to him, I thought I was putting on a nice mom face. I thought I was being really good at pretending,
Sure.
like like I wasn't bothered, but he's smart and intuitive and he knew. So I went into that very first dinner and talked with my boyfriend about what my intention was, but I created very intentional thoughts about I want to be present for him. I don't want to mom him. I
Mhm.
don't want to give him any critical feedback. I just want to be present for him. I just want to listen to him. I want to hear him. I want to understand him because in the years before that, I only saw the surface behaviors, but understanding what was underneath that, I I didn't allow myself to do that. So I use these exact concepts that you talk about here too, right? That taking control of our thoughts and
Mhm.
being intentional about it so that I could show up for him. And his response to just me being that version of me was just wildly different than the son that I had before. And perhaps he was doing his own work in parallel to what I was doing, um, or not. But either way, I knew that I wanted to be in that dinner with him with intention.
I love that. I love that. I think oftentimes when we're educators, like you and I are, we're very stuck in the mechanics of things. And this worked with this, and this is what I was taught, and this should be working for this child and this child and this child, like all the kids, right? Like,
Mhm.
but why isn't this fluency technique working with this kid? Why isn't this vocabulary technique working with this kid? Because it's not a one size fits all. And I think you can apply that to how you were treating your son. Was like, I know this. I'm a behavior specialist. I know how to handle difficult behavior. But again, like when you go back and when you think about the cycle that Bob Proctor says about the thoughts, the feelings, the actions, the results, if we keep addressing just the actions to get the results, we're
Mhm.
not taking into consideration the thoughts that cause the feelings for this child that that it resulted in those behaviors and the results that were he was outputting. So I love that you brought that up because I think that's a crucial piece that was missing in my therapeutic approach was that I was like, well, it worked for that kid. Why isn't it working for this kid? Well, everyone's different. But when
Yeah.
you go to the root of it, like you did, you understand the process. You were going to get the same result if you didn't change the thoughts that caused the feelings, that caused you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I think that's an important point for the audience to hear is we have to adapt and be flexible.
Yeah.
And when we're taught so rotely in school, we often come out as a rote human. And that's what school's missing is
Yeah.
that flexibility. So tell me today, if you were to say what was besides kind of like your mindset work, what made things click eventually for him to move back in with you?
You know, I I really genuinely think it was that the mindset work was at the core of all of it
Mm-hmm.
because me continuing, and I still do, right? So he moved back into our home after, so we've been reconnected for about a year, and he moved back into our home a few weeks ago. And it takes me intentionally every day making a decision about the thoughts that I want to have because it's easy for my mind to go back to old habitual ways of thinking, right? Like, there were such significant behaviors that we had in our home, and it's easy for me to, notice some things missing, for example, and my mind immediately is like, oh, I wonder what happened there. And then I'm like, no, no, Angie, like that thought isn't serving you. It isn't serving your relationship. It isn't serving the family. So what different thought can I create about something's missing? Like, oh, is it possible that I misplaced it because I've been so busy and distracted? Is it possible that one of the toddlers running amok in the house had something to do with it, right? Like my mind so quickly goes to it must have been him. And it takes intentional work to keep being flexible about the way that I'm thinking about things. Because, I mean, right? Like, let's be honest, we're humans and we put thought patterns on repeat.
Yep.
We, we don't even think we don't think our own thoughts,
Mhm.
which I find wild. As you were talking a minute ago about, I feel like I had this level of understanding about my son's thoughts, feelings, actions, results long before I knew the concepts that Bob
Mhm.
Proctor brings to us, right? I knew like I without going so clearly through it,
Mhm.
I had this level of awareness that he's thinking that I hate him. He's thinking that he doesn't belong here. He's thinking that, you know, he doesn't fit in. Like I had an awareness of the thoughts he was thinking and the feelings that would create. And then I saw his actions
Mhm.
and the result was our behavior. So I didn't know the concepts, but I had that awareness, but I had zero awareness about myself in that exact same scenario, right? So that's what I find really fascinating is that I felt like my thoughts were just inevitable. Like it was inevitably a victim because his behaviors were
Mhm.
hard. And so I wasn't able to put myself in that same model that I was able to pretty easily on the outside, put my son into understanding what was going on with him, which looking back, I don't beat myself up. I didn't know then what I know now, but I find it wildly fascinating how unaware we are of what we're thinking. And I look back and I think like, I essentially handed over my feelings to my son and
Mhm.
said like I don't want to have any control over what I'm feeling here, so you take the reins, and he didn't want it either.
Sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow. So how does what you are experiencing as an adoptive parent, how do you kind of tie in what you do for a living with that?
Oh, that I mean I do two things for a living. By day I'm a speech therapist in early intervention, so birth to three is what it's called where I live. And it what I have learned being an adoptive mom, digging into so much about attachment and trauma, I have become astutely aware of how prevalent trauma really is. And not just in the kids that I see, but in the parents and helping parents um, to parent when they didn't, perhaps their parents never learned how to play with them. Perhaps their parents didn't give them time or attention, or they experienced really awful things when they were young. And now they have these kids, and we're expecting them to just figure it out, show up, know what to do with their kids. And they don't sometimes have the capacity or the support or or they're not regulated enough in a
Mhm.
way to do that. And so I, in my daily work, I try to apply these concepts without crossing too many boundaries,
Mhm.
but to have such an increased awareness about where people are coming from, and that I mean, I feel like I've gotten very skilled at not taking things personally,
Mhm.
not nearly as personally as I used to, because that awareness of the thoughts, feelings, actions, results just makes helps us be in such a neutral and supportive space to not feel like, oh, they're doing this to me or they're being rude to me.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, they might be, but there's also a really good chance there's 100 other reasons that they're
And
saying
there's
what they're
it
saying.
usually has nothing to do with you. And that's what
Correct.
I think is a practice that I've put in, place as well is and I just had this scenario with my son last night. You know, people are going to talk, people are going to judge. You can't take what they say to you as reality for you,
Yeah.
because everyone's got an opinion, everyone's going to say what they want to say. If you take if you focus on yourself and loving yourself and understanding yourself, you're going to have inner peace that's going to literally like shield you from what people have to say about you. And, people let other people's opinions rule their world. And I find that
Hmm.
so fascinating that they find it so important to take someone else's thoughts and as their own and feel bad if they don't. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
kind of like the way we've lived the majority of our lives, right? You people pleasing
Yeah.
and wanting to be sure that, oh, well, will they like if I do this or will they like if I say that? I'm at the point now, I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not in an ignorant way. It's in a way of or arrogant, I should say, in that arrogant way, but it's more of like, you do you, I'm gonna do me. You're not living
Hmm.
my life and I'm not living yours. So like the judgmentalism that I had like, for many, many years dissipated.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
just feel like a light feather after that because
Yeah.
you don't realize how much you're carrying.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think also to the point of Bob Proctor, he has this responsibility article. I'm sure you've read it. You probably know it by heart like I do.
Yeah.
That also was such a game changer. And like when I'm working with clients, whether they're parents or in a relationship, that is the first thing that I have them go through. And I ask them to read it every day for 30 days because we think as adults, like I'm so responsible, right? Like I pay my mortgage, I go to work every day. Like we think we're responsible. And then yet we hand over responsibility for our actions sometimes, certainly for our thoughts and our feelings. We hand it over to other people willingly. And it's both ways, right? Like we hand over ours and then we take on responsibility for how other people are feeling. Like, oh, I must have made them feel bad. No, they have their own feelings and their feelings aren't my responsibility. Yes, I get to choose if I'm nice to other people or not, but I'm not responsible for how they feel about my words. Their feelings are based on their own thoughts, which are not mine.
And it's freeing when you think about that.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
ever encounter someone after you're, I call it awoken or woke, like I feel like I was sleeping for 41 years and,
Yep.
before I learned all this, that like if someone treated me in a way that I felt attacked, I always thought it was about me. And,
Hmm.
because and then it makes you feel bad. And you go through this whole process when really the hurt people or people who are frustrated within themselves are projecting it on you.
Yeah.
And that's a really important, I think, I guess, topic that I think people need to be hearing, especially when it comes to their kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really important. And, it's practice, right? Angie, like this is
Hmm.
not, okay, boom, I took a course and now I'm a mindset specialist and I'm done practicing. You know,
Yeah.
it's nothing like that. In fact, self-love is a practice. um, Choosing your thoughts is a practice. Remaining, positive is a practice. It's
Yeah.
all a practice. And the more we practice, the more it gets ingrained. So, can you tell me a little bit about maybe a myth or something that you've heard in your field that you've dissipated completely and said, you know what, like this is the way it is?
Uh, I mean, probably the one that I'm the most passionate about is that behavior management piece. So, like I said, like I was in the behavioral health, behavior management field for so long, and it was so ingrained in me to look at behaviors through a very specific lens. And there are tools and people who specialize in behavior management. But I feel like it is missing the whole underneath layer, the whole energetic layer to all of us as humans, that we're not robots who are going through life behaving this way or that way because we want to access something or because we're trying to escape, right? Sometimes, yeah, sure, that's part of it. But I also, I had kind of mentioned that I am a human design specialist and understanding really the like underneath of who we are, how we're designed, our very specific energetic needs that are with us from the moment we're born and are shifted and changed as we interact with people in our life. But understanding that and looking at behaviors through that lens and through the lens of something called mistaken motivations, which is really about how our energy interacts with other people's energy and how
Mm.
we have these unmet
Uh-oh.
needs.
Oh.
I feel
You just
like
you just
learning
froze for
that
a second.
was
Sorry.
ultimately when, oh no, so sorry.
Okay.
So understanding that underneath energetic layer, I feel like was such a pivotal moment for me in my career. I ultimately ended up leaving this, I don't know what the right word is, but I was running an autism clinic and I was very proud of that in many ways and proud of what we had created and accomplished and how we were serving the community. And my soul knew that there was a different way, a more compassionate way, a more connected way to help kids who were having behavior struggles.
Mhm.
That the systems that I had learned, to me, it was just such a mismatch. And so to me, that was like the pivotal change, the pivotal moment is looking at behaviors through the lens of human design, through our unmet energetic needs that we all have, right? Every one of us engages in some type of misbehavior in our most important relationships because there's something that we need that we're not getting. We might need closer connection. We might need, we might need to feel like we are empowered or like we have say over what's happening in our life. There's so many things that we have energetic needs for that we act out, our kids act out. I think that that's been the biggest like change
Mhm.
and flip upside on its head moment for me was realizing that I did not belong in that realm anymore in that behavioral management realm. It's not for me. And I'm not discrediting what they do. It has a place and it is right for some people, but it quickly became not right for me.
Yeah, and if you're serving, humans in that capacity, but you're being drained, it's not going to serve anybody because you're not going to be on your game when you're with
Yeah.
those, that staff and those kids. And it's exhausting. It takes a lot to be in that very rote teaching world where I like to think that as speech therapists we're a little more holistic and we think more about their sensory needs and we think about all the pieces of our kids that are there. And like kudos to you for making that realization because some people just stick with it for the rest of their lives
Mhm.
and they're miserable and they're not serving anybody by
Yeah.
being that person. And the kids are not going to get the best of you, not only their students, but your own kids. So kudos to you for doing that. So I hate to do this, but we need to start wrapping this up. But you're such a light. We need to really have a part two of this. I
Yeah.
everybody, I'm like, maybe I should do an hour with everybody because I want to talk so much more, but I know like the human attention span is not very long. So we want to be sure that we get the meat of it and then we can have a part two and people can
Yeah.
take their little bite-sized pieces. Um, but where can people find you? How can they connect with you? I'm sure there's many people out there that are either adoptive parents or have children with autism or all, are interested in EFT or human design. Where can they find you?
Yeah, so on the socials, I'm at Connected Parents with Angie. So Instagram and Facebook, even my link tree is Connected Parents with Angie. And then my website is
With a
angiegrant.com,
D.
but
With a
with a
D.
D. So we'll put the spelling in the show
Yeah.
notes. But if so I mentioned human design. If you're interested in just seeing what it looks like, learning a little bit, grab your free chart on my website. And I'd love to chat with you a little bit more too. If you feel like you want to take that next step with your kids and understand them at a much deeper level. And yes, I will be back because we'll talk human design. I think
Yeah,
it's
I think the next
fascinating.
section we can do the human design piece of it because I'm learning so much about that recently, and it's something that's it's just fascinating the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And
thank
it,
you, Angie, for being
yeah,
here. And
yeah.
we are going to continue this conversation for sure. Please follow Angie. Please, if you have questions, connect with her. And, she's got a wealth of knowledge from all different facets of life. So make sure you utilize the people that I'm bringing here because they're here to help you. And that is the whole purpose of this whole thing. So Thank you for being here. And remember, to all of my listeners, you can only understand others after you understand yourself. So please dive into this. Think about how your thoughts are affecting your feelings, affecting your actions, and affecting your results, and follow Angie Grandt. Thank you so much for being here. And everyone, I'll see you next time.